We learned that self-awareness and developing our social, emotional, and cultural competence is critical for the success of our students, our school, and ourselves. But how do we begin? You already took the first step, which is to build self-awareness through the assessment and reflection you just completed. One strategy that builds self-awareness and your social, emotional, and cultural competence is compassionate curiosity. Compassionate curiosity is a powerful SEL practice from trauma-informed instruction principles and culturally responsive teaching that is supported by cognitive neuroscience. It asks teachers to act as non-judgmental investigators that gather information so they can better understand their students using powerful questions such as, what's going on? What do they need? And how can I help? It's an important first step in learning to respond to your students with empathy and a conscious focus, and not a reactive emotion that will destroy relationships and learning. Imagine that a student gives a response that you immediately feel shows attitude and disrespect. You are aware of your initial negative emotion, so you pause and take a deep breath. You are self-aware that you made an assumption, and instead of reacting as if you know the reason behind their behavior, you instead wonder, what interpretation is causing me to feel this way? You regroup, and then you ask the student genuine questions, such as, is something bothering you? You look upset. What's going on, and how can I help? Or, help me understand why you did that. How might that affect you and your classmates? What might be some more effective ways to respond? And, what do you need from me? I want you to succeed. And then you listen to understand rather than to reply. That's what it means to be compassionately curious. It doesn't mean that you're a doormat and let your students do whatever they want. On the contrary, it communicates that you are actively observant and committed to a partnership with your students in helping them improve their behavior and academics. You still follow through with your consequences and policies, but you also create a dialogue that allows you to find the root of the problem and help build the proper SEL skills collaboratively with the student. We have so many blind spots as teachers, and assuming that we know all the answers discredits the child's involvement in their SEL development and assumes that they bring nothing of value to the table. Assuming we know what's best without student input does nothing to build student agency and their decision-making skills. Compassionate curiosity assumes the following. All students want to do well academically and behaviorally. Learning, growing, reaching our potential, and belonging is a basic human need. Students do well if they know how to. Behavioral and academic challenges are caused by SEL skills that need further development. For example, impulse control, empathy, seeing multiple perspectives, self-discipline, etc. Teaching SEL and behavior skills is more effective than punishment. We typically default to a punishment or consequence approach, but seldom put energy in teaching the very skills they need to behave well. Then we wonder why they keep misbehaving. Students bring much value to the classroom. They bring valuable strengths, ideas, culture, and values to the learning environment. They have stories of grit, courage, hopes, dreams, and even moments of success with various SEL skills that we can draw from. Assume positive intent and validate students' experiences and emotions. Students just want to be heard, and their experience is true for them. Let's honor that. We don't know everything, and we need student involvement by creating partnerships. If we want real and long-lasting change to occur, students must be agents for themselves. We need to develop independence in student thinking and problem solving. Listening, validation, positive intent, showing care, having high expectations, and providing support for students de-escalates confrontational or emotionally charged situations. So how do we practice it? Use the acronym FRAP. When dealing with a stressful or challenging situation where you want to be at your best for the sake of your students and yours, implement the FRAP method. F. Focus on calming down. recognizing your initial emotions. Breathe in and out. Count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then think of your values so you can calm down the emotional brain and reactivate the thinking brain. R. Reframe. Reframe the situation as an opportunity to learn with compassionate curiosity. How am I interpreting what he did? How can I view this differently? What's the opportunity here? What might be going on? What does this student need from me and from the class? What SEL skills does he need help with? A. Ask. Ask compassionately curious questions. Ask questions that show support, care, and a genuine interest in learning more about what is going on. Compassionately means seeing multiple perspectives, having empathy, listening to understand, assuming positive intent, and asset focus so you can leverage their strengths to help them and the class. Show students through actions and words that you care about them and believe they can meet the highest expectations. Curious. Curious is about probing for more information without judgment and maintaining an interest without deciding before you find out more. You're also seeking to learn about your students and become a more self-aware teacher. This shows that you value them and your own SEL growth. Questions. Is something bothering you? You look upset. What's going on? And how can I help? Or, help me understand why you did that. How are you feeling? What thoughts are making you feel this way? How might that affect you and your classmates? What are some better ways to respond? How can we work together to blank? What's one step we can take to blank? What do you need from me and your classmates? Praise. Praise or reinforce the student for sharing their thoughts, emotions, and for committing to better choices. This will help reinforce that behavior. Phrases include, "Thanks for your input, Jason. Those are great next steps. I'm confident in you. We'll check in later." In order to build this into a habit for you, mentally praise or reward yourself as you take steps forward. The process might be uncomfortable at first, so it sounds like this mentally. Good job. I just calmed down using deep breathing. I just reframed the situation. This is going to help me respond as my best self. I'm proud that I actually listened to my student. I'll keep doing that. Neuroscience studies show that mental self-praise produces even more of the pleasure and habit-forming brain chemical dopamine than if someone else were to praise our efforts and progress. But what if that student is really defying me and is being malicious? Assuming ill intent, even if you feel 100% about it, will have the following adverse effects. You'll close yourself off to gaining any new information that is helpful and a potential partnership, because for true change to occur, a child has to want to change on their own and with support. Your intention will solely be punishment or a consequence, not the teaching of a behavioral SEL skill. You'll respond in fight or flight mode because you've chosen to involve your emotions as a result of your perception. You're bound to escalate the situation or communicate disdain through your body language and tone. You'll erode your relationship with that student further because you now assume this student has other bad intentions. This interaction creates negative student emotions, which impact student learning, and the law of psychological reactance, where a student resists complying further when their autonomy and character feels threatened. This perception becomes further reinforced as he or she responds negatively to your approach. Any subsequent student misbehavior leads to thoughts that fuel your new perspective of them. See, I knew it. He doesn't care about anyone or respects anyone. The goal is as much for the student and you to respond from a calm and focused thinking brain where you can both make better decisions. Your actions and words will communicate care and confidence, which will help improve the student's emotional state. This is especially critical for students with high levels of trauma, because this type of interaction can buffer and even reverse the impact of adverse child experiences. This interaction produces oxytocin in students, which lowers the fight or flight stress response and allows students to connect and feel a sense of belonging. Remember, students learn effectively when experiencing positive emotions, not high levels of stress and hostility. This might make even the most confident teacher feel vulnerable, especially if you're used to jumping in and finding a solution before knowing the cause of the problem. However, being compassionately curious allows you to show students that you're trying to connect better with them and their experiences. You also model assuming positive intent, active listening, empathy, and perspective taking, which are powerful skills that build classroom community. When we are compassionately curious about our own emotional responses and the actions of our students, it pulls us out of the fight, flight, or freeze response, where we have limited thinking and might act in a way we'll regret later. Instead, we regain control of our higher level thinking by reactivating the prefrontal cortex so we can empathize, respond calmly, creatively, and effectively to our students and the demands of the classroom. The result is strengthened teacher-student relationships and classroom culture, improved SEL learning, and academic success.